George, you still love Tammy?
I love her to death.
You still love George?
Yeah.
We worked together for a long time. We fought a lot in the beginning because he wasn't quite the man that I married.
Country love songs sell fairy tales, but the singers who write them often live the opposite. Step behind the velvet curtain of the Grand Ole Opry, and you won't find tidy bouquets and champagne toasts. You'll trip over whiskey bottles, shattered picture frames, and love letters set on fire in dented trash cans. The stage tells one story, the tour bus tells the truth. Tonight we're driving that bus straight through 7 romances that rewrote Nashville gossip columns in spilled bourbon and bleeding ink. Keep your hands inside because every curve hides a confession, and the pavement ahead is littered with broken vows that still echo through classic vinyl. These aren't polite supper club memories. They're cautionary torch songs with real scorch marks. By the time the credits roll, you'll hear the love ballads differently, tasting the smoke in every high note and feeling the bruise beneath every steel guitar sigh. Remember that. George Jones met Tammy Wynette like 2 fireworks launched at the same sky, certain to collide before they burned out. Jones was already country royalty, a drawling genius who could bend a syllable until hearts snapped, but he was also an unrepentant binge drinker who vanished on multi-day benders. Bandmates once hid his car keys to keep him from the liquor store, so he roared off on a riding lawnmower instead, puttering 6 miles down Highway 79 with the determination of a man chasing salvation in a bottle. Wynette, fresh from an abusive first marriage, sang about standing by her man, yet she was walking into a hurricane. Their first duet sessions crackled with chemistry. The producer swore the microphones blushed. Off-tape, the pair fought like cornered cats, smashing hotel lamps and slamming bus doors. Jones would disappear for days, reappear with a bouquet and an apology slurred around that honey-soaked tenor, and Wynette would forgive until the next storm rolled in. In 1976, she filed for divorce, then withdrew it after a tearful reconciliation concert that left the audience sobbing. The truce lasted months. By 1977, Tammy claimed she had been kidnapped at gunpoint and abandoned beside a Nashville highway. Skeptics whispered it was Jones chasing her or even a publicity stunt gone wrong. Police never solved the case, but scars on her face told a story harsher than radio gossip. When she finally divorced him in 1978, Jones spiraled further, missing shows and earning the nickname No-Show Jones, while Tammy tallied her heartbreak into platinum. Their voices kept meeting in duets after the marriage died, each performance a haunted reunion of what could have been. Ask any old steel player and he'll swear the saddest note in Jones's "He stopped loving her today" isn't the funeral bell. It's the echo of Wynette walking away. Their love story left cracked drywall, medical bills, and some of the most enduring torch songs ever cut to vinyl. It proved that in Nashville, public harmony can hide private dissonance for only so long before the chord finally snaps. Jones never truly found peace. Johnny Cash was the man in black long before the tabloids painted his love life in scandal, but June Carter splashed it with gasoline and brilliance. Backstage at a 1956 package tour, she handed him a guitar pick, and he felt a bolt of lightning. Cash was married to Vivian Liberto, raising 4 daughters in San Antonio, yet every encore with June tightened the tether between them. The road fed their flirtation, motel lobbies scented with amphetamines and a California hillside accidentally torched when a drugged nap let Cash's camper ignite dry grass. The flames charred 40 acres and his wholesome image. In divorce filings, Vivian named June, an unheard-of public accusation for 1966 Nashville. Church groups recoiled, radio stations hesitated, yet fans leaned closer. Cash spiraled through pills and arrests, while June prayed, joked, and kept the show moving, slipping encouragement under his collapsing spirit. On stage, they bantered like sparrows. Offstage, she flushed his pills at gas station sinks and dragged him to dawn revivals. He proposed between songs in Ontario, dropping to one knee as the band vamped, and she finally said yes. Their 1968 wedding front-page newspapers promising redemption. Redemption, though, is daily work. Cash relapsed, once smashing studio lights after forgetting lyrics, while June patched drywall and hearts alike. She wrote Ring of Fire about the scorch of loving him and the single sword even as bruises darkened under sleeves. Critics called them Romeo and Juliet. Forgetting Shakespeare's lovers died young. Cash and Carter endured decades of messy devotion, powered by prayer and laughter. When June passed in 2003, Johnny followed 4 months later, unable to breathe without her harmony. Their saga sold millions of records and one lesson: some fires destroy, others forge steel. Relapse still lurked. In 1972, agents raided their home and found hidden jars of pills. Loretta Lynn was still a coal miner's daughter when she married Oliver Doolittle Lynn, a 21-year-old ex-soldier who bought her a $5 guitar and told her to sing their way out of poverty. The wedding happened 2 months after they met. She was 15, he was sometimes kind, often drunk, and always certain the world bent to his will. They moved to Washington State, where Doo logged timber, while Loretta washed other men's shirts and wrote lullabies between diaper changes. Doo also chased women between logging camps, a habit Loretta discovered by reading lipstick-smeared matchbooks in his pockets. Instead of surrendering, she turned humiliation into lyrics. Her first single, I'm a Honky-Tonk Girl, crackled across rural radio while Doo drove their beat-up Cadillac to stations begging DJs for plays. The record climbed charts, but fame magnified their chaos. Doo spent royalties on whiskey and motel rooms. Loretta spent sleepless nights sharpening words that would later slice him. Catching him flirt in Memphis, she marched on stage that night and aimed "You Ain't Woman Enough" squarely at the mistress's table. Crowds roared, Doo sulked, and Loretta collected another hit. Fans wrote letters begging for more every night. She once broke his nose with her purse. He bulldozed her garden to park a new truck. Makeup sex sometimes came with melodies. Their daughter remembers lullabies born from apologies whispered at dawn. Yet beneath the brawls lay an unbreakable current of loyalty neither could explain. Doo booked her gigs, tuned her guitars, and clapped loudest from the wings even as her lyrics roasted him nightly. When Nashville execs balked at songs about birth control, Doo growled the men were simply scared of a woman telling the truth. He pushed for "The Pill" to hit airwaves, daring stations to censor working-class reality. By the time Loretta earned the first Female Entertainer of the Year award in 1972, she credited Doo for lighting both the fuse and the spotlight. After 50 wild years, Doo died in 1996, and Loretta wept and confessed that every inch of her grit had been forged by their bewildering love. Hank Williams Sr. entered country music like a comet, bright, unpredictable, and doomed to burn out too soon. When he married Audrey Shepherd in a tiny Alabama ceremony during a spring thunderstorm, neighbors whispered that the lightning itself was an omen. Audrey craved the spotlight almost as intensely as Hank craved relief from his aching spine and restless mind. She forced her way onto his records, her voice skimming the notes, and critics winced, blaming Hank for indulging her. Backstage, she berated him for forgetting harmonies, then smoothed his collar before the curtain rose, their love flickering between violence and tenderness in minutes. Hank's pain, physical and spiritual, drove him toward the pharmacy and the bottle, an unholy duet of morphine and whiskey. Audrey tried hiding pills in dresser drawers, but he traded autographed photos for more, daring doctors to refuse an icon. One night he staggered onto the Ryman stage so drunk crew members propped him against the mic while Audrey swayed beside him pretending the wobble was choreography. They fought over gambling money, over motel room napkins from strangers, over whether little Hank should learn to yodel or just shout. The Opry suspended him, bookings dried, and the lost highway looked literal. Audrey served divorce papers in 1952, finally choosing survival over devotion. Hank signed them with shaking hands, promising he would straighten up tomorrow. Tomorrow still never arrived. 6 months later, in the backseat of a powder blue Cadillac racing toward a West Virginia gig, Hank died at 29, his pockets stuffed with unfinished lyrics and half-empty vials. Audrey wept, but tabloids called her the widow who had abandoned him, a villainous role she neither accepted nor escaped. She kept the publishing cuts Hank left her, ensuring their son's future, but prompting decades of family resentment. At night, she replayed his acetates alone, sobbing when his tenor cracked on wedding songs recorded long before betrayal. Critics hail Hank as country's blueprint, yet his blueprint was drawn in Audrey's handwriting as much as his own. Love, fury, addiction, ambition, and a crash that still echoes through every morose ballad on late-night radio. Nelson now jokes about heartache, but the punchline that ended his second marriage arrived in a plain white envelope. In 1971, his wife Collie opened their mailbox, discovering a hospital bill for the birth of a baby girl to Mrs. Connie Nelson in Houston. Shirley blinked twice, read it again, then poured coffee and waited for Willie to come home smelling of studio smoke and road dust. He confessed before he finished hanging up his hat. Honesty was cheaper than a private detective, he later quipped, but it cost him the steadiest partner he'd ever had. Shirley filed for divorce within a week. Willie packed 2 guitars, 3 bandanas, and the lingering scent of guilt, driving through the Texas night to Connie's porch where a newborn cooed like an off-time snare. The affair hardly surprised old bandmates, who'd watched Willie slow dance with Temptation since his polka-dot shirt days. Back in the 50s, he wrote Crazy for Patsy Cline, a song about love just out of reach, and now the lyrics felt prophetic. Shirley watched royalty checks arrive and wondered when the ink would dry. Tabloids pounced, branding Willie a blue-eyed drifter who left broken strings in every city. Yet the scandal fueled his legend. Fans packed dance halls to hear the sinner sing about repentance, cheering harder whenever he mentioned heartache. On stage, he introduced a new anthem, Bloody Mary Morning, a tune about waking up hungover and alone on a plane to Houston. Listeners didn't need a map to know whom he was chasing. Willie's personal finances crashed alongside his reputation. IRS bills, unpaid bar tabs, and the weight of alimony threatened to flatten his battered tour bus. He fled to Austin, trading rhinestone suits for denim and birthing the outlaw country movement, a sound soaked in regret and independence. Ironically, Shirley's exit became the creative key that unlocked Red-Headed Stranger, the concept album that turned Willie from regional workhorse to American icon. Years later, he told a reporter he still kept that hospital bill, a bittersweet receipt proving that art sometimes requires an impossibly high cover charge. Tanya Tucker barreled into country music at 13 with a voice too old for her freckles, but nothing in her meteoric youth prepared her for Glenn Campbell. Campbell, the rhinestone cowboy riding high on chart after chart, met Tucker during a television special in 1980. She was 21, he was 44, both nursing egos and sorrows. Their chemistry flashed neon. By the wrap party, they were holding hands under the catering tablecloth while cameras searched for something wholesome. Stimulant-powdered tables, guitars flew, and they chased each other through hotel corridors like doomed lovers. Campbell's third marriage collapsed within months. Tucker shrugged that she had never claimed sainthood. They recorded Dream Lover, voices melting into a duet that sounded like silk, hiding a razor blade. Off tape, they fought over jealousy so intense, Campbell once smashed a framed gold record because it featured her name above his. Police twice met the 1981 tour, noting broken crystal, bloodied knuckles, and apologies sung at 3 a.m. The tabloids feasted, dubbing them Beauty and the Boozed Beast. Tucker, younger but cannier, took mental notes on every headline, later admitting the scandal sold more tickets than any marketing team. Campbell tried rehab, she tried patience, both tried tequila. In private moments, they planned marriage, picking china patterns between court dates, yet each proposal dissolved in another white-powdered dawn. Tucker's father, a former heavy equipment operator turned tour manager, threatened Campbell with a tire iron after a studio argument left her in tears. Months later, Campbell announced an engagement to another woman during a radio interview, blindsiding Tucker while she was signing autographs 4 states away. She retaliated the only way she knew, by stepping into a booth and laying down the searing track Strong Enough to Bend, a love song that sounded like a loaded pistol on vinyl. Campbell married again, divorced again, and eventually found sobriety and religion, while Tucker kept riding the storm she partly created for good. Decades later, she called their affair a beautiful wreck she wouldn't repaint, because the dents proved she had survived the crash, and still sings about him. Parton radiates sequins, but gossip always chased her glitter like moths. In 1966, she married Carl Dean in a Georgia courthouse ceremony so modest, the preacher's wife took the only photograph. Carl preferred small towns and fishing poles. Dolly preferred spotlight glare and big dreams wrapped in 12-string sparkle. Porter Wagoner hired her in 1967, expecting a compliant duet partner on his TV show. Their duets rocketed TV ratings, but backstage Porter scrutinized every dress, hem, and royalty statement. Rumors of romance sprouted faster than daisies on a Tennessee hillside, never confirmed yet impossible to stamp out. Porter's marriage cracked. Tabloids cast Dolly as the blonde wrecking ball. Carl watched from his porch swing, telling reporters he trusted her while cranking the radio to drown the rumors. Dolly wrote, "I will always love you" as a professional goodbye, but listeners heard a woman tearing herself from a complicated love. Porter begged her to stay and later sued for $1 million when she walked in 1974. Nashville insiders claimed Dolly paid him with future royalties just to escape the partnership. Meanwhile, Carl became the phantom spouse, photos rarer than unicorns, interviews non-existent, fueling talk that the marriage was a publicity stunt or, worse, a prisoner of convenience. Dolly laughed on talk shows, reminding audiences Carl loved her long before wigs and rhinestones. Dolly later confessed to a dark emotional entanglement in the late 70s, admitting she once held a pistol before a barking puppy snapped her back to life. A puppy scratched at the door, snapping her back to reality, and she decided living was the louder headline. Porter died in 2007. Dolly stood by his casket singing the song that first freed her, tears glittering like stage lights. Carl stayed home as usual, waiting to greet her with coffee and quiet jokes about how the world could keep its rumors as long as he kept her. Their triangle proved that sometimes the loudest love story is the one nobody hears. Country music markets fantasy, yet the songs that last are carved from ugly, unfiltered truth. George and Tammy taught us that harmonies can't hide hangovers forever. Cash and Carter proved salvation walks beside temptation, holding the same hand. Loretta and Doo showed how a woman can weaponize humiliation into an anthem and still kiss the bruised knuckles that caused it. Hank and Audrey illustrated that genius burns its closest witness first. Willie's envelope, Tanya's chaos-laced heartbreak, and Dolly's invisible husband all remind us that private wreckage can fertilize public legend. The next time a steel guitar weeps or a fiddle swells beneath a pledge of eternal devotion, remember the motel invoices, police reports, and late-night tears welded invisibly to each note. Maybe that is why these records endure. They promise we are not alone in our mess. If kings and queens of Nashville can love badly and still sing beautifully, perhaps our own shattered pieces can hum too. So keep spinning the vinyl, keep believing the chorus, but never forget the verse written in blood. That hidden verse is the real reason country songs survive the static and keep the barroom lights glowing after final call, after neon goes dark.